How to draw on SelfCAD Part 2. Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to review the 3D sketch and related functionality. As a quick preview what we did in the freehand drawing, I focused on the idea of showing how to do precision, some settings, and also the main idea how the drawing mode works, and it's like an independent application and so on. I'm not going to go over everything, I just want to show one thing, so I'm going to show that in contrast to 3D sketch. So over here, if I'm going to draw, for example, a basic square, a rectangle, and now I want to add a circle, there's basically two modes. I can kind of do it like this would be similar to what we find stitch and scoop union. The idea is always when you do a stitch and scoop, or this, it's called basically Boolean operations, and union means it removes everything from the inside, so it stays a complete solid polygon, no lines, nothing inside. Or you can do it as a subtraction, which is a stitch or scoop subtraction. In this case, it's called eraser. So you can erase piece, which in this case, it will do something like this, cut in. In both of them, you have a clean polygon and so on. However, there's a lot of times where you need to have inner edges to work with it later. And this is what SelfCAD is going to do, what 3D Sketch can do. There's other things that I've shown about precision that I want to show an example. So the first thing I want to show here is a very basic example, and then I'll go in some more advanced examples using some tutorials that I found. So to get started, I'll go to 3D Sketch over here, and I'm going to do something similar. You go first to the precision settings over here. You can see we have still the same idea, grid vertices, but we have more options over here. I can snap to objects, to all profiles, or active profiles. I'll show this later in an example, but I'm just going to explain what it is and you see it later in action. Active profile means the one that I'm working with. All profiles means others. I have an option to have many profiles, and there's others. And all profiles are used when you use a profile as a guide. And as I said, you'll see it later in action. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to draw in, let's say, a basic rectangle. I use the grid vertices to snap to. And you have these settings that I said, the same they have in the other thing over there, and that's basically it, what I'm doing over here. Okay, so now actually I'm going to do one thing more. I'm going to draw an ellipse here in the center. Okay, so yeah, it's actually not in the center, so okay, but never mind, it wouldn't be straight, but then focus on exact design. But actually, let me see if I can center entire design. Would look a little nicer, but still I think this is not in center. I can select this section actually. Let's select just this and center this as well. Okay, so it's fixed, problem fixed. This is, by the way, the selection. This will always select complete polygons, as you could find, like minimum cycles, the way it's called. Like it finds something until it gets interrupted. So in this case, it didn't get interrupted the entire thing. Same way with the circle, it didn't get interrupted. If you go with the edge, then you can select just individual edges or kind of something like this. Okay, and you see later how this is actually very helpful, how it's used. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually, instead of gonna, what I discussed in the first example is that we use the brush mode over here, the brush, when you want to get the exact thickness and something like that, like the thickness of a wall or something like that. Now if it comes, or there's an option to use like quads. If you want to draw here with the wall thickness, I can basically use rectangles and draw it like this and with exact measurements. I want to show you here, but profiles is a lot more flexible, that you can use all of the tools in combination. So I'm going to go actually to add the details. It's one of my favorite tools for everything, for mesh working as well, and same for profiles. And this actually has a very interesting option here. It's a minimum step size. The minimum step size is something that you have actually in drawing as well. You have it in many tools like move, rotate, scale. The minimum should move. And let's say I want to have over here the thickness over here 20. Okay, so I'm going to make it 20, and now I can simply move it in by 20. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move it in. Let's say turn this into a table. So I'm moving in kind of here 20 each side, and I don't have to type in measurements. I can still type in measurements over here in the bottom, but it's much easier if I go with step sizes. And now I'm going to confirm it. Okay, so I can even make it, let's say, get a little bit more creative. I'm gonna round, kind of chamfer this in to get it a little bit rounded here in the bottom. I mean, this section over here, I want it to be rounded. So I can go and draw an arc and play with it, but yeah, why not use these tools to make life a little easier? So I'm just kind of rounding it over here. So as you can see, I'm basically using basic drawing from a simple quadrant and an ellipse, we have turned it into this. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the extrusion to give it some height. The extrusion actually in this case finds this as a hole, so it's removing it. So I'm going to use the other option. There's another option to do, which is fill polygons. So I'm first going to fill the entire thing over here. It fills it completely. I'll turn on the solid mode so you can see what's happening. Okay, and now I'm going to add thickness to it. So I'm adding thickness to it. Let's say I want this tabletop to be 20. Why not? Everything today is 20. So I'm doing something like this. And now I'm going to go to Polygon mode, which will allow me to have an option advanced setting part selection. I'm going to pick off these parts over here, the sections over here, and actually I'm looking, why is this smaller? Didn't I do 20 in all of them? I must have done this more than 20. I didn't realize what I did. Okay, I think I've done this more, so it's not symmetrical. I'm sorry for that. I just didn't realize. Okay, so now I'm going to extrude this using extrusion again. Let's say extrude it to 200, something like this. And actually I can undo it for a second because I want to select this part as well. So I can do it separately, but I can do it together also, selecting this part, and now extrude them for, let's say, 200. And now simply let's rotate this table around the z-axis for 180 degree, and here you go, you have this non-symmetrical table. Okay, if you want to remove these lines over here, let's go now to resolution 0, and it's cleaned up. I can even remove this with edit details, go remove, and basically clean this up. I can clean up more over here, turn this into quads. I need this line because to connect this, to make it manifold, unless I turn off manifold, but then yeah, it will turn it not manifold. But anyways, not to go into this. So this is basically here. So what I did over here is I didn't pay attention to thickness here, but you can see how we can use a combination of everything in these tools. And you have seen actually we have two options. We have extrusion, which we're just going to extrude the entire thing, and we have the option to first create a surface by itself, which is this just fill polygons, which just turn it into a surface. And once you have a surface, you can do whatever you want. So in some cases you want to delete stuff. So for example, if I want this to be quads, it's actually much easier to do it now, because I can go to edit details and remove it now, these details, and it will be much easier to do just once instead of then later cleaning up when it's already a 3D mesh. So there's a lot of stuff you can do over here on this plane before, which is a benefit of working with surfaces. And you can obviously delete also. If you want to delete, for example, make it as a whole, you can just cut this out, and then you can go to extrusion and get it like this, or add thickness later. Not extrusion, just add thickness actually, but it doesn't matter, it's the same idea. So this is actually an interesting thing. Before, theoretically, you should only be allowed to do add thickness to this, not extrusion, because it's just a surface. But because too many people were mistaken when to use extrusion, when to use add thickness, SelfCAD has just recently made them automatically detect when you're using it incorrectly, so it will actually work correctly. So one idea is extrusion is if you extrude something, it should not add the bottom faces, but extrusion now will add the faces. So anyways, not to go into this technical details, this has been confusing for a lot of people, so SelfCAD just made it automatically detect, and that's it. Okay, so this is the basic idea how you can actually create a mesh. There's actually a third idea how to create a mesh, so let me just show you something very basic. So let's say I'm going to draw again a rectangle. And in this case, I mean, I can add more layers, draw in 3D. For example, I can go to my plane setting and offset the plane by, let's say, 200. And then I'll have to turn it on to orthographic view so I can see what I'm doing. And I kind of draw this. So now I have this. Now I can move back the plane so it doesn't block me, and move out of orthographic view. And now I can start drawing in these connections over here and start building the cube. Okay, so that's something like this, and building it, completing it, and turn it into a cube. Okay, and now I'm going to add another plane. So let's say I'm going to add first let's show it something like this. So the idea here is that I've drawn a simple cube, but you already have the basic shape. So you no longer need to extrude, you need to kind of fill the entire thing. And this is where you have the option to go fill polygon again, but in this case it already detects as a 3D shape, and you can see it gives you two options now. You can give this option or an option with convex or this, and these are two algorithms for how it is. So this actually is a much more advanced use case, and usually you don't want to do that. But before I go that, let me just show you a much easier way to do what I've just done. So I can basically just draw a rectangle like this, and then instead of manually creating planes, I can just extrude that without creating a mesh. So I get something like this. Okay. So why would you want to do something like this? Actually, there's no reason unless you need to add something on the side. So if you think about all of these things that we did, what I did with freehand drawing in the previous video, and everything I've done thus far is technically 2D, just added thickness to it. So it's kind of like, you know, you have a 2D shape, which is symmetrical from top to bottom. Top down it's symmetrical, and you just move it up and add thickness. But what if I need to add some thickness to it? I need to add some other ideas. So let's say in the side over here, I want to add some window over here, something like that. So in this case, I need to draw out the shape like this, and then I can add, let's say, another plane, and let's say I'm going to add a front back plane. I'm going to snap this plane to this, so I can now draw on it. And now I'm going to draw, let's say over here, some window, something like this. Okay, it's a big window, huge. Let's do something else here. Whatever, just randomly, why not? A window within a window. So if I do something like this, this would be much more complicated. How do I fill this? So now if I do fill polygons, this actually is going to give it the fill, where you can see now it's completely filled like this. And then I can go to part selection, and I can select, let's say, this part, and maybe extrude that, let's say, inwards -5, and then I can basically, let's say, go to this part, and let's say delete this or make this for a window, and then add thickness to it, whatever, just kind of play. The idea here is that you can add more things than this can do, but even this is something that you don't really need to do it that way, because you have other tools to do it. So let me show you. So if I'm going to select these, I'm going to split them off, so now I have them separate, and I'm going to fill this. So I have now a basic solid cube, something like this. Let me turn on the backface coloring to see if it's not flipped. Okay, it's everything okay. And now I can take this and I can simply go to cut with profile, and it's cut in. And as you can see, I got the same idea here. So I can now go to part selection and select these parts, and so on. Also, you can also see in the video that I have titled top 7 non-manifold geometry problems and how to fix them, something like that, where I show how you can use added details to fill, and when fill polygon is not working, you need to use added details, and yeah, that can help you some other more kind of real advanced use cases. Okay, so far what I've done everything is the idea of filling, meaning is you have profiles and you just fill them. So when you think about profiles, you think about 2D. So before I move on, actually, I want to show one more thing. Before I actually move on to the new topic that I just wanted to say, I'm going to show you one more drawing example to illustrate what am I doing here? I have the wrong plane here. I have to go to the top bottom plane. Okay, so I'm going to draw now another simple example, and I want to show you how you can actually control the face count, the structure of the geometry. So first of all, I want to show another thing here is that this will allow you to snap to center points. You see, you have nothing here to snap to. I'm just snapping to the center line. So everything you have, either the center of the mesh gives you this red dot, or any line itself. It doesn't show you a dot, but if you hover on it, it will show you a green arrow. So I can center to it. And now I'm going to snap, let's say, make a big circle. Okay, doesn't matter. And I'm going to cut out this, remove this. So, or actually remove the inside part. Okay, something like this. Okay, now why not make this, yeah, why not? Okay, doesn't really matter the example. So I'm going to show something like this. Okay, so if I'm going to fill this is kind of like, you know, simple thing over here. If I'm going to fill this, let's use fill polygons for it to show, but the same way it's going to be extrusion. This looks like kind of an ugly triangulation. It's not really nice. So this is the idea here, is that whenever you deal with these type of stuff, fill, polygon, extrusion, all of this, they are something that it's called a constraint triangulation. And this is very, very important because this allows you to mix and match, copy faces and stuff from other pieces of geometry, because what it means is that it always maintains the same amount of vertices. It can never add any vertex. So if I want, for example, this to be kind of a fan, triangular type of triangulation, all I need to do is give it a vertex in the center. The question is, how do I add a vertex in the center? So there's two ways of doing it. So either I can simply draw a line, let's say from here to here, just one line, snapping it. Now I haven't added, I press escape to finish a line. There's nothing added yet. The red dot you see is just center from it. But if I draw another line, let's say from this center to this center, over here, let's see if I can just go out and later clip it out if I don't find it. Okay, you see, it added over here a center, over here a point, so I can just go and delete this section, simply clip it off. Okay, but now what it also did is, if I turn on vertex mode, you can see it added a vertex over here at the point of intersection. So I can actually go and move this up if you want to give it a different type of triangulation. But for the use case that I have here, what I want to do here is, if I'm going to fill this, it's going to give me a much better triangulation, because now it's going to fill it everything, including this center point. And now you can see it gives me something like this. But it's still not very nice, so I can kind of improvise and decide where I need to add the details. So let's say I can add another line over here, and now it will give me maybe a vertex center point over here, and that will give me better triangulation. So let's first see how this will work as it is now. And obviously you can play and decide how you want it to add. So look over here, it gave me this nice triangular fan over here, and over here this is the best that I can do with this, unless I add more points. But there's another way you can do it. So you can kind of, let's say if I remove all of this that I've just added, okay, including this line, I can just go 3D sketch and I can simply decide how many edges I want to add. So if I want to add two number of edges over here, so if I draw a line here, a single line, if I added two edges, it automatically added already a point. I can go and decide to add more. So let's say if I want to add, undo this, and I add, let's say 8 edges, okay, just randomly. Oops, what did I do? I click from here to here, and let's snap it. Okay, so now you can see we have a lot more points over here inside. And now if I'm gonna fill it, I will get something much different. So you can obviously control everything how it is, and I'll show you later how real practical use case when this is helpful. Okay, now besides this basic idea how filling stuff, there's as I said, this is basically polygons. We can think about a cube, for example, has 6 polygons. Each of them are polygons. So even if I use the full polygon, they're still polygons because we have flat surfaces. Or if I do something from the bottom up, depending how many details I have, it could be a single polygon. Or if I have, let's say, other polygons with inside, it could be nested, many polygons within another polygon. But they're technically always polygons. They must be polygons, otherwise it cannot be filled. You also have another option, which is revolve. That I've made a separate video about revolve, but I'm going to show you another reviewing a tutorial, another example, because I can teach some drawing examples from it. And then you have Loft, and then you have follow path. Each of these are different ways. There are follow path is unique to SelfCAD, but it's something similar to what you find in Adobe Illustrator, I guess, where you can follow stuff, and some CAD software have also something similar. And then you have Loft, is kind of a general tool you find in most CAD software, and Revolve. Both of them are kind of like bread and butter from any CAD software. So, but again, I hope to make videos, separate videos to each of them. I just want to show you one example here. That suppose I want to make this kind of an odd shape, and I need to draw this into a, I need to draw over here this into a spline. So what I can do here is, let's say this should be a spline. I can, let's say, first delete this shape over here, this edge over here. And I can now go to the drawing and I can use the spline. And if I draw normally a spline on something that is straight, it's still a spline, but it doesn't give me control point. I cannot modify it. And this is another thing where a spline has an option over here that in addition to the smoothness, which will give you how smooth it is, you're not going to see it. It's just how smooth it behaves. It's not really the amount of edges, just the smoothness. It has also amount of points. So if I do, for example, something over here, I got a point now that I can modify. So I can take, let's say, for example, this point over here, and I can move it, kind of manipulate that. But now this will no longer be a polygon. So to show you this in the other example how you can actually do it, I'm going to bring back this original edge, okay, and I'm actually going to select all of these edges. I'm going to split them off, just split them off, and I'm going to convert them using round objects. Has actually an option to convert them into a spline, converting them into a spline, and I'm using my beloved add the details tool to add some points to it, vertices. I'm going to add some vertices to it. I can either add vertices over here, or any place where I want this to modify, or I can use resolution, any other tool to, actually resolution will convert it back to edges, but never mind. I can take this, and now I have this spline added. So I'll go to, I want to go to vertex mode. So I'm going to select these vertices, and now let's say I'm going to scale this out. Okay, so now this is scaled actually from all sides. And now to fill this will be, if you want to fill something like this, fill polygons, this actually wouldn't work. So what I need to do over here is I'm going to use the Loft tool. And the Loft is where it adds vertices. It's not really limited to what you give it. If it's limited to what you give you, you don't have enough details. It's missing a lot of details, because if you think about it, in order to fill this surface over here, it needs to fill in a lot of details that will kind of interpolate between all of sides, and this will be requiring more details, and all of these triangulations cannot add details. So if you go to Loft, this will basically loft something like this. Okay, so it's first just getting the basic shape. Okay, and now I can go to rail list and I can add a rail. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to cancel it because I don't need it to wait to triangulate every time, just by the last one. So that makes it live faster. Okay, so now I'm going to do something like this, and now let's wait to triangulate all of them. And look how this completed. This actually made it quite nice, which is, let's go to resolution 0, get it cleaned up, and so we get it nice here. And if you see over here, this is kind of bended all over the surface, and this is where another way you can do. Okay, so that's about the Loft way. And then we have the revolve and follow path. Okay, so now we need to go over to, I think I'll make a separate video where I'm going to go over some tutorials that can teach a lot of additional things that I missed out in this video, but for now I think you have the basics. So see you in the next video. Okay, thanks for watching, and please let me know in the comments if you want me to show anything else. Thank you.